race fans, my name is Taylor and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. Today we have quite a bit to talk about, so this will be in a two-part special. Part one is going to cover the SRX debut, or the Camping World SRX debut, and then we have the All-Star races to cover. And then the part two will be the Ally 400 at National Superspeedway, a race I am incredibly excited for. I know my guest is very excited for. Please welcome brand new to Above the Yellow Line, Adam Lucas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Taylor. Really appreciate being on here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And so if the viewers want to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, can you give us a little summary about how you maybe got into the sport and what you're currently working on?
Sure. So I've been a lifelong fan. I've been watching it since 1998. Matter of fact, my very first race I watched was the Daytona 500 that Dale Earnhardt won. Little did I know he had never won it, but history is there. But I fell in love with a car that was very brightly painted with a lot of colors. And as a matter of fact, I believe he might be over your left shoulder on the wall.
Left shoulder, and then I have my shirt right here.
There it is. Yes. So I fell in love with Jeff Gordon's race car at the age of 5. I told my father, I said, "Dad, I want that race car." So he went out to Walmart the next day and bought a little 164 diecast, and I've been a fan ever since.
There you go. Yeah, I love Jeff Gordon. I have such an appreciation for him. I'm glad you do too. We can agree on that for today.
Oh, yes.
So I want to start now by talking the Camping World Superstar Racing Experience, brought to you by Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham, and I guess Marcos Lemonis at this point too, technically with Camping World. And I think for Adam and I, if we want to start with this, it exceeded our expectations, or I think it met them. They were really hyping this event up, and I mentioned on my show before, I was a little nervous. There was too much hype, there was too much talk, not enough walk, and I think it was viewed exactly as it was intended. Of course, we'll have to really see when the cars get on the dirt, because I think the biggest beef between the SRX series and the NASCAR series was, look at what we can do on dirt. So we'll have to see in the near future. But I want to talk about the lineup real quick, then we'll go into the beef of this event. So local track hero Doug Coby won, Greg Biffle was in second, and Tony Stewart finished in third. I want to ask you, Adam, who was the superstar you were most excited to see? And then just a follow-up, a fun question. If you were racing in the SRX series, what color car would you have in number, and then why?
Well, I was excited to see all the older NASCAR drivers make their return to driving a stock car. So I was happy to see Michael Waltrip, Bill Elliott, Bobby Labonte. Bobby Labonte probably was like the biggest one for me, because when I was a kid growing up, my stepfather, he actually got to interact with Bobby Labonte through work, and they used to work out together for he had, I believe, a shoulder injury, Bobby did, and he was rehabbing it, and my stepfather was able to work out with him. So it was really cool to be able to see Bobby back in action.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so cool. Look at that. And then what color car would you have in number? I'm curious.
Oh, easy. It's going to be number 91. It's a number that's near and dear to my heart, and probably my favorite color, and also the color of my alma mater, Coastal Carolina University. Teal Nation, gotta be teal.
Oh, I love teal. I was debating on the color of my car too, because I think a lot of people would say blue for their cars. I have to go with royal blue, and then the number for me would be 3, because I'm a triplet. Fun fact. So 3 is so 3 is like a really important number to me. Just a trio, they're my best friends. So if I made it big in the racing scene, like in a car, that would be the number. And then for me, you mentioned Michael Waltrip. Now I have a special love for the Waltrips. I love their roots. I love hearing Michael Waltrip's story. I watched In the Blink of an Eye. I don't know if you've seen that, but I reference it all the time when I talk about Michael Waltrip, just because the respect I gained from watching that. His roots in Kentucky. I have a lot of family in there in Kentucky, and I just love his fun spirit. So he was one I was excited to watch, especially.
Well, you'll have to go on eBay and try to find the old fan club t-shirts that say walnuts on them. Michael had these really cool shirts that were made up that had kind of his head like a cartoon, and he was a giant walnut. It was awesome.
I need to find that. And then I want, do you know his famed crash in the Kool-Aid car? Do you know about this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I want to find.
As a child, I recreated that car with like a freebie Tide car I got at one of the races. But me and my cousins, just for the heck of it, we got some little firecrackers and a hammer. And we just started beating the car together and blowing it up. And I was like, oh, hey, Mike Waltrip's car.
See, I feel like you need to find this car, even if you threw it away, send it to me, because for some odd reason I want like an in-race replica of that car after it was destroyed. It's so, look, I mean, thank goodness he was okay, and it's just so iconic. It just, for me, it shows the spirit of Michael Waltrip. He's like, yeah, I was fine. Like, here we go. We're just gonna go racing again, and I love that. But back on topic with the SRX series as a whole, we know that there was quite a few highlights for this, and I want to start by talking about the broadcasting in particular, because for me, that was like the biggest highlight and the biggest difference I can point out between NASCAR and that series. So, Adam, I want to ask you what you liked or what you thought maybe they could do better with the broadcasting of the SRX series.
I liked how professional it was to the fans and the audience on TV in general. It wasn't like they were trying to make the product too, I don't know, preschoolish to understand. It was very professional how it was presented. Alan Bestwick, come on, he's the GOAT. Everybody loves Alan Bestwick. And just even with Brad Doherty, he was fantastic down in the pit area. I really wish they would have went more with him if they would have during pre-race. I think pre-race may have been where they could have done things a little differently, maybe to benefit the viewers at home. I think they put some small car or something. I guess it was, I don't think it was an actual car. I think it was digitally put into the image. That really didn't make a lot of sense in my opinion. However, I might be wrong about that. But I think they could have done either more with that, or they should have just left it out completely. But all in all, I really, really was impressed with CBS's show that they did.
I absolutely agree. The big thing for me too was, so there's a few. So I can't just say one thing, but the professionalism was one of them. It wasn't a like a bro hanging out kind of deal. It was professional. It was racing. I actually love Danica Patrick kind of commentating it more as she was a fan. I mean, she was kind of cheering for Carnage, which I know it's kind of sort of a no-no, but I really appreciated it. She's like, maybe we'll get a caution. And I'm like, maybe we will. So I did really like that.
It's funny that you should mention that, because the entire time I didn't even want to see a caution. I just wanted to see the pure organic racing that we were seeing, and I thought it was beautifully done.
And I think that's a testament to what we saw as well, because sometimes in NASCAR, I'm like, oh, we need a caution. Like, we got to pick things up. And there's some things where maybe the races should be shortened. And there's a lot we could go over with that. But I think the broadcast was done really well. But the side-by-side commercials, NASCAR, if you're out there listening, the fans love that because we can still see the action. And even if it's still just green flag racing and they're going, we want to see the races. We don't want to see people talking. We don't want to see another Geico ad, even though I understand they pay for the sport. But it was just so incredible to actually see the race in pretty much in its entirety. I really appreciated that. And I think Tony Stewart, he was really like, this is what NASCAR fans of the past and now want to see. He was really harping on, this is what I didn't like about NASCAR, maybe what he thought they could do better. And in all aspects, I think he truly did succeed. Another aspect I want to talk about is the level playing field we saw, Adam. I found the rules of these events very interesting, actually. And these drivers had one set of tires for the whole night. I want to be clear on that to start. That was a pretty incredible strategy play that these drivers have to figure out, is when to push, when to pull. They ran on equal equipment, and then there was a random draw before everything for their crew chiefs. So there's different every time. No one has a strict advantage. And then there was all these cautions, and the drivers would have time to come in and fix their cars and have their position back on the track wherever they were, because they really wanted all these 12 drivers to be in the event because there's so few. And I just really appreciated that. That's something NASCAR probably can't do, but something I would like to thank the SRX series for doing. Adam, do you have anything to say about the level playing field? Anything you like there?
Well, I like the fact that we didn't have to talk about, technical inspection. Oh, is this car going to pass or fail post-race inspection? I like that it was just, all right, they're all the same. If there's something wrong with one of them, it's our fault. If we gave someone an advantage, it's our fault. It's not pointing fingers or anything. It's me. We messed it up. You didn't mess it up. So I like the fact that it really was, it was controlled, but it still felt pure and organic. I keep using the word organic, and that's how it felt to me as a viewer. And it also gave me IROC series vibes. Back in the day, International Race of Champions ran some really cool cars. I know the Firebird was like my personal favorite. I think they ran a couple other different types as well. The Camaro, the old school Camaro. That was also a really cool thing. And that's another thing about the actual car itself. The car looked like a stock car.
Yes, that's what I loved about seeing these cars, and they were unique to the driver as well. Like just the design wise, too, just the colors and the numbers. I do also want to say too, with these rules, they had something called what they call a fun flag in the mix. Like it was a caution to stack up the field, and I think if there's anything that fans could maybe criticize about this event, it was that it was pulled at the wrong time, and they were like, I don't understand it. At least they were honest about what the flag was. It wasn't just a random thing for maybe like a bottle cap debris or something like that. But I wanted to ask you your opinion before I gave mine about what you thought about this.
I like that they threw it, but if we're going to keep going forward, it still needs to be random. It doesn't need to be predetermined. We already have a series that has a predetermined caution.
My point exactly.
We don't want that. We want to have it be as natural as possible. Yet they're trying to keep the field. If they want to keep the field level, then by all means, if the leader is hunting down someone who's slightly off the pace, he's going to be a lap down in 20, or he's going to be a lap down in 20 laps. Then maybe if the leader passes him, okay, let's throw the caution. Let's stack the field back up. He gets to come around regardless of if he's been passed or two people have been passed. Everyone gets to come back around, keeps everything competitive. I think I like the random caution or the fun flag. I don't like the name fun flag.
Yeah.
I think just the randomness, just whenever it happens, it happens. No one's gonna know. The only people that know are the tower.
Absolutely. I agree with every point you made exactly. And I do want to mention this, though. They actually tweeted today on their Twitter account that they listened to the fans, listened to what they had to say, and they have changes for the next race coming up this weekend. So first off, I wanted to say kudos to Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham for listening to the fans, taking what they say and changing things. Now, we don't know what the changes are yet. This was just as of today, which we're recording this on a Tuesday night. So we'll have to see what they change, what they listen to, but I do appreciate that they are truly making this for the fans, the level playing field, making it a truly talent-based series, which I absolutely appreciate.
It really reminds me of back in February and March, there was an indoor football league called the Fan Controlled Football League, and it was actively asking for fans' opinions, and they were actually voting like during the games. The rules were changing as the game was happening. Like there was one team that got an advantage because they decided, let's do an onside kick for every kickoff. Well, at halftime, the fans voted to eliminate that until the last minute of the final quarter. And throughout the week, different rules would change as well from fan input. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to mandate this, we're going to mandate that. It was the fans that were voicing their opinion. And that's what I think a lot of SRX is doing. It's really, I think they're really, really, really trying to be as fan involved as possible. And I really like that.
Absolutely. So overall, we were extremely impressed with what the Camping World SRX series had to offer. We're looking forward to next weekend at Knoxville Raceway. I believe that's in Iowa, not Tennessee. It's in Iowa, correct?
Yes, Iowa. Good old Knoxville, Iowa. It's a beautiful dirt track. It's going to be really great. I'm anxious to see how a lot of the traditional like oval racers or guys who have never even been on dirt, how they're going to react. It'll be interesting to watch on. I think they post videos on the SRX Twitter page of them doing practices. So I definitely would tune into the Twitter and check those videos out before the main event on Saturday night.
Absolutely. My goodness. It's going to be such a fun time. But let's move on to the NASCAR side of things. Also, in the comments below, I'm not sure if I'm going to cover the SRX series week to week, but if you really would like me to cover it, I have no problem doing that. Comment below if you would like me to, what you want to talk about more. I'd really appreciate that. But now let's move to NASCAR. Let's talk about the All-Star races. This was a non-points race, so I don't want to dive into it too much, or I didn't want to until there was a lot to talk about. So here's a few points I want to mention, but up on the screen is the lineup for talking about the All-Star Open to begin with. Tyler Reddick was on the pole for this, and then Cindric, David Starr, and then Chastain were sent to the rear. Though this was no problem for Chastain because he won the first round of the All-Star Open. And then the second round went to Tyler Reddick, and the third round went to Eric Almirola, which was a bit of a surprise to me, but nothing more surprising than Matt DiBenedetto winning the fan vote. I was pretty surprised by that. I think a lot of us were.
I was definitely surprised, especially since Bubba was not one of the stage winners or round winners, pardon me. I really thought he had a strong car, but they got bit by old bad luck again. And the fan vote did not save him. The people's champion was triumphant. Hey, Matt is a deserving driver to get into it. All those guys are deserving to get into it. The people spoke, though. That's who they wanted.
Exactly. And I will say they were deserving because, in my opinion, they were the best cars on the track. There was no surprises. There was no wrecks besides the ones, I think, due to track conditions, I would say. But would you agree that the best cars got into the All-Star race?
The best cars that didn't get wrecked, yes.
Yes.
I say that with a grain of salt for my fallen amigo, Daniel Suarez. I really, really, really wanted him to get in, but it just wasn't meant to be. Trackhouse Racing will have their day in the sun. It's coming.
I was going to make that point that if Jones and Suarez didn't wreck each other, both of them could have gotten in. And I think Daniel Suarez was one of my picks to get in. And I just think that he is so talented. Jones actually wrecked, I think, from third position, somewhere in
there. I think he was running either top 5 or top 10. He was in the top half of the field, and we all know how hot it was. It was.
Oh my gosh. But I think those two, we don't give them enough credit on any given weekend. But Suarez has shown incredible talent and skill in that new team. It was such a shame. And these guys battled 145-degree track conditions. And so I want to ask you, Adam, to give some insight for those who either didn't watch or are kind of curious about some other varying opinions. How do you think it affected the racing we saw? Was it less aggressive? Was it more aggressive? What are your thoughts on this?
I definitely think at the beginning, everybody was basically dancing on a razor blade. They were teetering with track. I think I even texted you and said, wow, they are going really slow. Yes. And I think they may have been. I don't have the track data or mapping or any of that, but it looked like they were being very hesitant going into especially turn 3 and 4, where you are flat out. You traditionally you gun it all the way from the end of 2 all the way to turn 1 again. I think there were quite a few that were lifting just because of the heat and how slick the track was and the unknown of the traction traction grip? They change the name every week.
It's like PJ1 traction compounds. There's another name for it.
Sticky stuff.
Sticky stuff. We'll call it the sticky stuff. But yeah, I would say they were cautious. They were as aggressive as I think they could be. They started off trying to figure out how far they could push it. And then I think Stenhouse spun, Bubba spun, and they were like, okay, we got to hold back. We got to hold back because to remind everybody at home, and I don't know if this is even a reminder, I think you all know this, if you're going to make it into the main event, you got to have a perfect car. It can't be wrecked, can't be damaged. You want the best shot possible to win the $1 million when you go to the All-Star race, the actual race. But to close out the section on the All-Star Open, I want to ask you, did this exceed your expectations or meet your expectations for an open race?
Traditionally, with the open race, there are a lot of cautions, a lot of wrecks, a lot of guys who are bumping and banging, trying to advance. However, a lot of different variables played into, I think, some of the calmness after the first few cautions. So for my personal expectations, it was probably right in the middle of the road. If I had to go on the above the yellow line official scale, I would probably put it, if I would do it, I'd probably put it right around 50 for an open.
Honestly, I did enjoy it, though. I think the track conditions, as we've mentioned and discussed, really did hinder kind of a bit what we saw. But I loved the All-Star Open every single year because it gives the drivers a chance that we usually don't see or they don't talk to every weekend to have a chance in the spotlight. It gives them a chance to shine. And I am a fan of a lot of those drivers like Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones. I love Chris Buescher. I don't know what it is about him. I just love, he's talented. He's done really well this season too. And I was really bummed that there was something happened to him during the race. I think he actually ended up wrecking out or
he had an issue. I think, was it after on the initial restart? He jumped the restart.
Yes, he had a penalty on the restart too. Yes, and I thought
it totally, like, it was like a cord in a tire just started to unravel.
And I was so bummed for him because I thought he had a good shot, and I love the interview they did with him. So that is our take on the All-Star Open, though. Let's move on to the main event, the All-Star Race. Lining up the field for you all up on your screen is the starting lineup with those drivers who won inserted into the mix. Larson started on the pole. I don't know how this happened. No surprise, though. He started where he finished. He was the guy who won the $1 million. And then the other results on the screen of who won each round, not stages, but each round. And then the pit crew challenge went to another hindered guy. Chase Elliott's pit crew had the fastest pit time and won $100,000. We're going to start by talking about the rules for this race, because I think that is a big, that is the major and overarching component to this. They were pretty overwhelming to start. If you weren't watching the race, you didn't know how it was going, or you even just read the rules, you had no clue. I tried to interpret them, nothing. So I want to ask Adam real quick, do you feel like this format, did it help? Did it make sense as we kept going? And in terms of the race, do you think it actually helped the racing?
Honestly, I could go either way on this, because with the All-Star race, it's always had rules, special rules at that. The double file restarts, and they originated from the All-Star race. After 2009's edition, the very next race, they decided, hey, we're going to implement it full time for all the series. And I think it's been a hit since then. So some of the rules that they have used have continued into the actual racing we see today. But going back to the actual rules for this year's event, I was confused all week trying to read them, but as the race played out, it started making more sense. The only thing I wish I would have known, or I don't know if anyone else was able to do this, but actually participate in voting for the field inverts. I was unaware that fans had an impact on that. I don't know. I would have loved to have known that before the race, but that was probably the most confusing part, was we had the power.
Actually, yeah, that was something I was confused about too, because they're like, you fans had an input, and I was like, when did we have an input? I didn't know if it was a website, I wish they would have advertised that more, because I think if you would have advertised that more, bringing the fans into the decision, apparently fans voted, because we had them choose the field invert. But that's something I would have liked to know. I do want to give props to the Fox booth for this, though, because they had a very tough job of figuring this out as we went. And they were multitasking. They were adding up points. They were doing pit stop times. They were doing a whole bunch of stuff all at once. And, we can give them some crap for their week-to-week broadcasting. I know all of us I have. But they really did a lot of work on this. And I am impressed with the product that we ended up getting, all things considered. And the watch and learn tactic for me really helped, because I stopped trying to figure it out. And I like the graphics on the side of the screen. They would do like the spinning wheel and like the different inverts that could be chosen. And then they gave the rule for each round. And then Mike Joy explained it a little bit. I thought that was helpful. Did you find that helpful?
It was about as helpful as the time that I saw it and could read it.
Yeah.
But by that time, just watching, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to watch it unfold. I don't care what the rules are. It's a race. Fastest cars are going to end up at the front. However, that seemed to be a little trickier said than done, especially with what type of package we had at this race.
Do you want to talk about the package in particular? I don't have any comments on it, because I think this is a one and done thing, but there was not a lot of passing you could do. If you were at the back of the pack, you stayed there. And if you try to go to the front of the pack, you move right back to the position you started in. The only movers I really saw were maybe the top 4 positions, maybe at best, and maybe some in the middle.
It seemed that dirty air was a huge factor in the whole passing deal. I really think them taking away 40 horsepower compared to the 550 that they run at the 1.5 miles and over, I don't think it would have made as much of a difference as they anticipated. I still think it would have been difficult to pass, but it is what it is. These cars are obsolete after the season. We'll just go from there.
That's my take on all these packages. I've talked about it before on the show, then I was like, you know what? Next year it's going to be different. We'll see. Before, though, I do want to ask you about the Pit Crew Challenge, because my take on it is, it was nice to have it live, nice to have it during the race. I think the coverage could have been better on it, because it was so hard to focus on the racing. And then the pit stops. And then we had a caution during a pit stop. And It was very confusing. I don't know if you have more of a personal preference for them to go back to the way they used to do the challenges.
So the way they used to do the pit crew challenge, well, there's actually been several ways. They used to host a pit crew challenge at one of the downtown arenas in Charlotte, like 2 nights before the All-Star race, and the winner, winning pit crew would get to choose their pit road position for the All-Star race.
I like
Now,
that.
yeah, no, it's a great one. I love that. But then what they did was they got rid of that event, so there was more emphasis on during All-Star qualifying, which I am excited to get back next year, hopefully. So what they would do is it's like I believe they run 3 laps, but within those 3 laps you have to make a green flag pit stop. Now here's the catch though. The cars have no speed limit coming down pit road or leaving pit road. So you can imagine 12-year-old Adam at Charlotte Motor Speedway seeing a car hauling the mail coming off the turn 4 and just flying down pit road, slamming the brakes on, landing right in the pit box. It was quite a feeling. So, oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. NASCAR, maybe bring that back next year. If that makes me excited as a 21-year-old newer fan, that would make a lot of newer fans excited. Please consider that for next time. So we talked about the format. I want to talk about the track a little bit, and I guess the race as a whole, because a lot of us are under the impression, and because I think this is a little true, that Texas Motor Speedway has not produced many great races in recent years. It's kind of not going under, but it's not doing the best it could be doing. I think for some fans, they're a little flipped on this, whether the All-Star race helped the track's chance of staying on the schedule or whether it hurt it. My personal opinion, I think it actually did the track some good having this event. Maybe take all the pre-race frills aside, because that was a little much for me. That's my opinion. But I want to ask you, Adam, what did you feel the All-Star race did for this track, or if it helped it or hurt it?
It didn't hurt it. That is something it did not do. It did not hurt it one bit. My expectations for the race itself were not very high, so yeah. My expectations were met for the actual track itself. But going forward, I'm not sure if I want to go back to Texas and have it as an all-star host. I think maybe either going back to its old traditional home, or maybe I don't know, maybe rotate it or something.
I am a fan of having it rotate, though I talked about this, I believe, last time on the show with my friend Zachary Bell, that there are certain tracks where you can and you probably can't rotate it on. I think super speedways is a little bit of a stretch. It could get dicey, and when you're racing for $1 million with a super speedway, those two do not mix well. I think that's a big no. A road course maybe down the line, that could be interesting to see. But I do like the idea of rotating it. And one opinion I had when I did my Twitter space, and I'm actually going to get to some of your Twitter comments about this race in particular in a second. But one comment I had was keep it in the Carolinas. Keep it kind of in the home of NASCAR, the center, because a lot of teams, this is extra money to travel to a non-points race, especially for the lower budget teams who are trying to make their way in, and that's not guaranteed for them. Do you think do you like that idea of keeping it in the Carolinas, or North Carolina in particular?
I definitely think it needs to stay within, I wouldn't say within North Carolina or just the Carolinas, but definitely don't go any farther than the Mid-Atlantic, and try to keep it within like maybe 5 or 6 hours away from the shops. Something that's drivable, maybe. I think I even mentioned this, was rotate it to other little short tracks that are around the Carolinas, and even all the way down to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Virginia, even Tennessee. Tennessee would be a great place to have it. Not really sure of any other short tracks besides Bristol and the fairgrounds, but maybe whenever the fairgrounds is ready, we could run an all-star event there.
I would love to see that. I forget who mentioned it. I try to do Twitter spaces maybe twice a week, once a week. We did one after the All-Star race. I'm blanking on who mentioned this. So if you're listening, comment down below if this was you. But someone mentioned bringing it to like Rockingham when that reopens, if it reopens, or bring it to North Wilkesboro if it reopens. Some of those old tracks that we love seeing, or fans loved seeing back in the day when they were still running. And if they're back here, bring them to bring some history back. Bring in some of the all-star pizzazz back, because I think we're missing some of that. Bring it back to its roots. I do want to mention, now that I mentioned Twitter, some of your comments about this weekend. So I want to start by talking about some comments from Kyle Firm. He said the Camping World SRX had a great debut. Love the old school bumping and banging with all the legends. Hometown heroes showed up, all the superstars. Great watching on CBS. He also said this about the All-Star race. Left me wanting more, to be honest. I attended it in person. Good for you. In that unbearable heat. Sucks. Racing was good. Bless your soul and all the fans that like stayed it out for that in Texas. That I think they said it felt like over 100 degrees. Ridiculous. All you fans are amazing. And I kept this in mind too. Remember the rain delays from last year? It was like a 3-day rain delay at Texas. Yeah, those fans.
And it was cold. It wasn't just rain. It was a cold rain, and there is a huge difference.
Those Texans braved the weather. My goodness. A lot of our friends over at the Podium Finish live in Texas, so I'm like, you guys, good for you. And a lot of them attended. A lot of the Texans that were at the Texas race last year got actually free tickets to the All-Star race this year. So there was a lot of people there. So thank you all for braving the weather. I hope you all had a good time at least. And then I also want to mention a comment from Kevin. He said, I think it's cool that the pit stop competition is during the race, but the old way of having it is still my favorite. I would agree. He has a picture up here of the old way that you can all see. I actually really like that way as well. Finally, Carjack said, I'd probably suffer through all the over-the-top gimmicks and rules of all the All-Star race. For another few laps like the ones at the beginning of the final stage. Took a lot of guts for Larson to go up the hill like that. Unreal. I agree. I know it's a little reckless at the end, but that 10-lap shootout for the $1 million. I don't understand how this works. I don't know how Fox figured out how this works, but the format for this race did somewhat get the fastest cars to the front of the field. Brad Keselowski got lucky. He really did get lucky on that, but I would love to see some more shootouts like that, at least in the All-Star race. So with that, though, those are your fan comments. Thank you so much for tagging me in those. It's time to rate this race above or below the yellow line. Today's a little different though. Adam mentioned a format to me that I think is great because I was like, I don't know how to rate all these races. So we're going to focus on the All-Star races though. So the first All-Star Open is going to be on a 0 to 50 scale. The All-Star race is going to be on a 0 to 50 scale. We add them up and that is our total score above or below the yellow line. So Adam, can you tell me your score for the All-Star Open and then the All-Star race and then add them together?
So going back to what I had previously stated about, I'm going to go right down the middle at 50% for the Open. Let's go ahead and make it a true 50% by bringing it down to 25 on a scale to 50. And it really has to do with, it started off very sketchy with the actual track surface, and then it kind of mellowed out. Not a lot of passing except for Ross Chastain. So I mean, it went right in the middle. I really wanted to see like some unknown come up to the front and just like be competing for a win, like in years
that's what
past,
I wanted.
Yeah, but that didn't happen this year. So yeah, I'll give it a 25 out of 50.
And then for the All-Star race, what would you give that one?
Gimmicks aside, if we're going based purely on what we saw on television, the actual racing itself, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but I'd have to give it maybe a 20 out of 50. Maybe
really?
Like, yeah. But here's the thing. Once again, expectations were not extremely high, so it exceeded that. But in all the years of watching the All-Star race, it wasn't one that I'm going to forget, but it's not one I'm going to remember as, oh, you had to be there, you had to see it. So I'd have to give it about a 20%.
I would say, I think the reason we're going to remember it mostly is because of that final 10 laps and then the pre-race. Now that we're talking about it, thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that's what we're going to remember. For me, for the All-Star Open, I gave it a 30 out of 50. I thought there was incredible action to start. Obviously, I think the track conditions hindered it, but I don't want to count the track conditions into this because I don't think that's pretty fair. I'm trying to look at the racing as a whole. Ross Chastain impresses me all the time. He scares me and he impresses me. And I think the way he was able to go from the back to the front of the field in the first round was so impressive. And then so that's why I had to give it a 30. Now for the actual All-Star race, 0 out of 50. I feel like I rated this a little high, but because it was one for me that I'm going to remember just a little bit. I might forget it next year, but I think I'm gonna give it a 40. I think it was better than last year's at Bristol's, in my opinion. I do love short track racing. I'm kind of biased on that, but I do think this one was a little better because my expectations were really low. Adam and I talked about our expectations not being too high for this one, so in some aspects it technically did exceed it a little bit. We talked about this. We talked about the aggression. We talked about the last 10 laps, and I think for me that kind of sold me on why I scored it so high. So my combined score, oh my goodness, it's a 70. I just added this up. It's a 70. I'm pretty shocked. And then Adam's was
It was a 45.
wow. So those are our scores for the All-Star Open and the All-Star Race.
Those were Adam and I's ratings for the All-Star Weekend. Let us know in the comments below your ratings. Thank you all so much for watching part 1 of this week's video. Make sure you check out part 2 coming to you soon for the Ally 400. Like this video and subscribe, tell your friends and family, and while you do that, thank you all so much for supporting the channel, and until next time, we'll see ya.